Good afternoon, everybody. It's a special time for Weber This Week here on a Monday, June 24th, 2013. A sweltering day in the low 90s. But hey, I complain when it's hot. I complain when it's cold. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to FingerLakes1.com and our show called Weber This Week. And you may be wondering why the name changed. We just changed it from Weber on Sports, which was the name for like 40 years. But we decided to make this change. And people have asked me, why did you change the name? And I keep reminding them that it gives us an opportunity to bring in folks from all different platforms to talk about all types of issues. Politicians, fundraisers, people that have a sport they want to talk about. So it allows us to, like last week, we had Dr. Frank Nietzsche, and the president of New York Chiropractic College, who was a special guest, and he did a great job. We've had a lot of comments about that show. And today I have a couple of my friends, longtime friends of mine. I haven't seen Doug in quite a while, but I see Ted all the time. It's good to have them in. They're representing the Trinity Episcopal Church here in the town of Seneca Falls. Of course, as everyone who follows local stories, the church has undergone tremendous remodeling efforts. We're going to get into that in detail, find out where they stand. Of course, they've been in a fundraiser for quite a while. We'll get an update on where they stand with that, and we'll find out more about what you can do to help them as we go down to the 11th hour. So without further ado, Ted Flock, good to have you alongside. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
My pleasure. Doug, and haven't seen you in a while, but I watched a lot of your musicals when my daughter and all my relatives were at Midas Academy, and I missed that opportunity to see you do some of that fabulous work that you used to do, and it's good to have you alongside as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Let's talk about the church. Of course, I didn't realize, and I was showing Ted that they gave us a pamphlet on the church and what they're doing and trying to accomplish. First off, I didn't realize the heritage, the longevity of it. And Doug, you can take this, 1885. I don't think a lot of people realize, I didn't realize it had been here that long.
Yeah. And actually, that's what even fewer people know, is that it's the second Trinity Episcopal Church.
Okay.
The first one was across the river. It's still there. It's the white house, or white building where they had the haunted house for so many years.
Okay, sure.
That was the original Trinity Episcopal Church. And then in 1884, they decided to build a new structure, and so they moved across the river, and now we have what is Trinity Episcopal Church today.
Well, certainly you have undergone a fundraiser, which you currently are in, I believe, your final phase. But I was looking at the pamphlet, and I noticed that you've done a lot of work other than working on the roof and possibly trying to get the money to get the roof redone. Ted or Doug, take that and tell us about some of the improvements you've made in that church. It's pretty mind-boggling. I didn't realize all the stuff you've done there. There's all the different types of remodeling projects.
Well, some of the windows,
right?
They have a lot of the mortar and the windows.
Sure.
We had to redo them. Excuse me, and I'm trying to think of the popular name of the windows.
The church is quite fortunate to have several Tiffany windows.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And so they've taken out now two of the very largest ones and sent them back to a studio to be completely rebuilt and then brought back and reinstalled. So that was a big job. And then we also had the bell tower was becoming unstable, and so the bell we hadn't been able to ring the bell in decades, as far as I know.
Wow.
So we had that stabilized, and then all the exterior mortar work was repointed. We had the organ rebuilt, and so this has been probably 15 years of relatively intense work at fundraising,
continuous improvement,
and trying to get these things in hand. And then the roof phase is the final phase. We're trying to protect our previous investments.
Doug Avery and Ted Flock are our special guests today on Weber This Week. As a later show than normal. Normally I do my program at 9:30, but due to conflict with my schedule, they were nice enough to reschedule to come in at this hour. We welcome you to our show here on FingerLakes1.com on a sweltering Monday. As I look at this, the replacement of the roof, give our viewers an opportunity to figure out what happened to the roof in the first place and what caused the damage and where you stand financially as we speak today.
Well, usually the shelf life of shingles lasts so long, and we're getting to the end of that.
Right.
And then through a lot of wind.
Sure.
And we had that microburst.
Right.
And that changes. Well, we had leaks in there, and that increased the amount of leaks that we had. And like any leak in a roof, you don't always know where it's come.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had the roof repaired several times. That microburst was really the nail in the coffin for that roof. I mean, it was just the last straw. And so
it had to be sort of a sad day for all you folks and that came in the next morning and looked at that and realized the damage was getting really to the severe stage.
Actually, the worst happened during a church service, and it was raining hard outside, and suddenly it just started pouring down on the organ and the organist.
Oh wow!
And so right in front of everybody, there was no way to hammer it home more clearly than that.
Well, let's give our viewers also an opportunity to discuss the parishioner number. How many folks attend the church basically on a given week? Is there a number that normally attend services?
Well, we got an average about 50.
Okay.
And it's a retired congregation.
Sure.
Basically, there are a few young people there.
Okay.
I got one thing I'd like to say here.
Go right ahead.
Originally, in the shoreline of the church, because of erosion, we lost 30 feet of shoreline.
Wow, I never realized that either.
That was one of the concerns that was happening to the church structure. And that's why one of the phases started up. But we had to fill underneath the church in with sediment that they pumped from the canal, the Erie Canal. And that we originally had rooms down there. It was classrooms down there. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Is that something, the erosion protection, the brick wall, is that stable now, or is that something that's going to continue to be maintained?
Well, fortunately, in the archives, they found some paperwork that if that case ever happened, the state would
pick up the tab on fixing it?
Exactly.
Well, that's important.
So you may remember, it was 20, 25 years ago when the state came through with barges and put in that retaining wall, and that was to stabilize it and to stop that erosion, because it was really, the ground was giving way and it was headed right toward the building. When Van Cleef Lake was created and the flats were filled in, that's when the church lost to the state the lower, the rooms underneath. And so this was when the canal system was created.
Back when that was the flats, the church stood where it stood now, and then it was like a direct downhill into the flats with another building back there?
But there was also a lower level to the church, and those rooms had to be filled in order to create the canal. And when the state did that, part of the deal was that they would maintain, they would make sure that the canal did not create future difficulties.
So the church,
and in fact, it did. And so that's when they came in 20 years ago or so.
The church is still protected then from a law in must have been 1915ish or something when that flats got filled in. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was just reading some of the information in the pamphlet that was given to me, and the cornerstone was laid in 1885. The church opened Easter Sunday, 1886. The architectural style is a mixture of Gothic and early English. The entire cost of the building, site and foundation, was $40,000. Yeah. You can't even buy a car for that today.
You can't buy a roof either.
No. And as Doug pointed out, 3 of the church's stained glass windows were designed and created in the studios of Louis Comfort Tiffany. That's impressive.
Yeah.
The parish hall, built in the late 1910s, was a base of operations for area churches to provide aid to sick families during the influenza epidemic of 1918. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing stuff. The church is considered to be one of the most photographed in New York State. We'll get that in a second. It's featured on most tourism brochures pertaining to the Central Finger Lakes area. Trinity Church draws visitors from around the state and the world. And by the way, Trinity Church is a recommended stop on the historic tours of Seneca Falls. And Doug and Ted certainly know my background. I was born in Lyons. We moved here when I was 2, so I don't remember the move. But basically, with the exception of 5 years when we got married, me and Mary, we went to Geneva, her hometown, home city. We moved back to Seneca. We moved back here in 1971, and basically, actually, from 1947 to 1966, we were in Seneca Falls on White Street, then Spring Street. We went to Geneva 5 years, then came back and bought a home on Green Street across from Gino Frappoli, and now we live over in the school building, which is owned by John Strawway. My point is, what I was going to say is, I drive by the perch where you look over the water to the church, and I have to admit, I have seen hundreds and hundreds of people before Ted and myself talked about having you in to talk about it, taking photographs of the church, and it's just something that you expect people to do because it's a perfect shot.
It really is.
And then when I drove by after the ravaging and the microburst and saw the blue tarp, I thought, that's sort of sad, because I would guess anybody who comes from outside of the country, and there are visitors from all over the world that come here because of the women's rights, et cetera, I guess it's got to be one of their pictures they must take before they leave. And it's pretty interesting to know that it has to be one of the most photogenic structures in the state.
Right.
Basically.
And the statue of the three women on the other side of the river has added to that.
Exactly.
And sadly, we've seen people this season taking pictures of the statue but aimed toward the bridge, and they wouldn't be if that blue tarp wasn't on the church.
And that's sad.
Yeah, it is.
Ted Flock and Doug Avery are with us here on Weber This Week, our show here on FingerLakes1.com. Hope you're having a good day. And again, it's pretty hot outside, and we hope that you withstand that. But let's talk about the campaign committee, and we'll get to the details, the nitty-gritty of where you stand with finances. Doug Avery, of course, is with us. He's the campaign committee co-chair. Steve Barlow is the church warden. Irene Ferrante, is that pronounced? Is also a church warden. Carolyn Zog is a campaign advisor. Lance Blackshaw is a campaign advisor. Members of the vestry, the Reverend Polly McWilliams-Casey, Randy Crawford, architect, and Fran Caracello, a name I certainly know Fran from way back when, a grant administrator. So whoever wants to take it, you were looking at a sum of money in the $300,000 range, and tell us when that started and where you are right now, basically. Someone that gives the numbers?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Originally, it was we had a year to achieve our goal.
Right.
Right. Otherwise, the state wouldn't match it.
Exactly.
So we started, it was October. We started in October. And this is a green committee. We've never done any fundraising before. And, thank the people that we had and the knowledge that we pulled it together, and the people that contributed, the businesses, the congregation, people all over. It's been amazing. And we really do appreciate that. I want to get that in there. Anyway.
I definitely want you to, because people, Doug, and never. You're amazed at the people that come forward when the goal gets tough.
Absolutely.
So where are we at right now? You had the matching grant, or you have the matching grant?
Right. We have the grant is actually left over from some of the earlier projects, but it's going to expire at the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
And we determined, we got some early estimates last summer that the job would cost about $300,000. So the state grant, which is a matching grant, I figured if everything came into play the way we wanted it to, if we raised 150 and the state kicked in 150, there would be our 300. And so we're right around 150 now. We pretty much made it. There's a concern right now because the estimates we got on the roof cost were, of course, a year old.
Sure.
Are a year old now. And there's a little bit of headroom in this matching grant, so we're gonna keep going on a sort of a low-key basis and see if we can come up with another 10 grand or so.
Well, then the obvious next question would be, is if somebody's checking us out right now and would like to send you $20 or $100 or $50 or $500, certainly you would take the money. And how would they get that money to you? What would be the appropriate address?
It would be Trinity Church.
Okay.
Post Office Box 507, Seneca Falls, New York, 13148.
Okay.
And they can just mail it to
some indication on
the
memo line of the check or whatever, or just a piece of paper in there says roof campaign, and it'll get
check made out to Trinity Church.
Trinity Episcopal Church, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I see in the paper where the Generations Bank has helped out. I see where the county supervisors have voted to give a donation as well. Not that it's your makeup, neither one of your makeup, since I've known you both too many years. Was there ever a point thinking you may not get there? Was there ever, any of that retreating?
Several times.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wondered because
and especially the last piece of the puzzle was the county contribution, and we went to them because they're the ones more than anybody else that have used in their brochures, in their publicity, their tourism campaigns. That image of the church with the packet boat on the canal and so on.
That's interesting, Doug, because they were, there was a little bit of controversy when that news came out about using the public funds, but the county has benefited from that building, from it being a tourist destination, and from just the straightforward using of the images on almost every tourism-related periodical that's or any type of publication they've used in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a bargain if you look at it that way.
We'd like to think so, but that was really the driving rationale behind going after these funds, and luckily for us, they saw it our way. It was investigated thoroughly by their people as to whether it could be done, whether they could make a contribution to a church, and so on. And it was determined by their attorneys that it could. And so, we found large like Seneca County brochures with us on the front cover, us on the back cover, us in the center spread. And it's people have told us all along. Well, there are lots of other structures in the county that are equally important and equally in need of money, and it could have been any one of them. The point is that they didn't use any one of them. They used Trinity Church time after time after time. So that was the rationale there.
And one of the big things that it's a historical building. It's on the National Register. We didn't drive our full force. It's just a historical building. We want to preserve that for years and years to come. So our next grandkids, great grandkids, and whoever will really enjoy the beauty of that historical church.
I can imagine too, Doug, that when you had your meetings and money wasn't coming in at the speed you thought it might coming in, there had to be some deep breaths taken in realizing, bake sales aren't going to get you get to where you got to go.
I started to say, the last piece of the puzzle to fall in place was the county's contribution. We made fairly strong progress right up into the last 20,000 or so, and as you know from any kind of campaign like that, it's the last piece of it to fall in place that's often the hardest.
Sure.
And so we ended up, if what happens if we only come up with 130, then we're trying to do a $300,000 job with 260,000. What kinds of things would not get done? What are the options? What choices do we have to make? So we had long conversations about what would happen if we didn't get there.
Now, do you have a contract? You obviously have contractors in mind, and maybe you already talked to them about the cost. They gave you proposals.
Well, we had a proposal from the person who did the repairs and put the tarp on.
Right.
So that's how we knew the approximate dollar figure we're talking about. But right now we're just about to go to bid. So we'll do it through bids, just like a municipality, a municipal contract.
Is there anything that we can expect that would be different, whether color or style? What's it going to look like when the work's completed?
We're working on color right now. If anything, that might be a little darker.
Okay. But basically what we've enjoyed for the past
absolutely,
absolutely.
century.
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing. Well, I ran down the campaign that the people involved in the raising of the funds. Do you want to take a minute or two, each one of you, to talk about some other people that have been helping out? Maybe we haven't mentioned them, representing the church, that we haven't thought of.
There's one, Marilyn Cater.
Right, Marilyn, my old buddy.
I
used to work with her at Gould. She was quite the lady.
Endless energy.
She's the goal-getter. I mean, she's a pusher. She really helped us.
Yeah, I remember
with
the
all
days.
the mailings.
And Marilyn's quite a sweetheart. I haven't seen her in a long time, but she's
actually we couldn't make it without the whole crew.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, everybody had a little bit of talent, and we pulled it together, and we were attaining our goal.
That's awesome.
And
And before we take our break and give you a chance to wrap up your discussion, I just want to have you give us the post office box again. If anyone's checking us out right now, Ted Flock, representing the Second Trinity Episcopal Church, along with Doug Avery. They are down to the 11th hour. They have bids going out. They think they're close to their target. But, of course, as you know, you're never close to what you think it might cost. It might be a little bit more. It's never less. I don't think it's ever less. In the remodeling I've ever done when I owned a home, it never was less. So if you want to chip in and kick in, write a check. Ted, the address again?
Again, it's Trinity Church, Post Office Box 507, Seneca Falls, New York, 13148.
And again, folks, it's from a person who's lived in this area, I can vouch for the fact that it's a must-see, and it's a most photographed structure that I can recall seeing pictures. Like I said, and Doug pointed out, with the statue of the women there, they always would turn and boom, take that shot. And we need to restore that to its original state. And even
I think it's kind of timely too, Harold, that Generations Bank is redoing the
Yeah, that's
IGA
right.
across the way.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
and
That's right.
the removal of the old Westcott Rule, which is now just a nice green field, and so that whole area, you know, I don't know if I think there are even different wards in the village, but it's all one sight line. So that whole area is going to get a nice facelift over the next year.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, before we wrap it up, it's hard to believe it's almost 21 after the hour. Why don't you take a minute or two, both of you, to say thank you for the folks that have helped out so far.
Well,
Give you an opportunity.
I'd like to thank. Letters went out to not only our own congregation members, but members of the community and local professionals, and just the extraordinary variety of people who stepped forward to help financially. It was exceptional. People that in the community who have absolutely no affiliation with the church whatsoever see the value of that structure historically, and we're interested in its preservation. So I'd like to thank those people who stepped up, even though they really didn't have any cause to.
Ted?
Again, myself, I'd like to thank them too. It's unbelievable what they did to help us out. You know, and the building also is used for other facets in the county. When they had that drowning, we opened up the parish hall for the people. We have neighbors' dinner out. We feed people that need a nourishing meal. And this Saturday coming, we're having what it calls Let's Go Fishing. It's for the kids in the community from 2 to 9 years old, 2 to 11. 2 to 9 is the time.
Yeah, okay.
9 to 2 for the fishing thing. We give them
Sounds like
prizes and
fun.
so forth.
It's New York State Free Fishing Week too,
Exactly.
so they don't need a license or anything. Just
Right.
show up with a
Right.
pole. Do they even need to bring a pole? You guys have some poles?
Well, we do have a few extra, and grandparents, they have no excuse not to come now.
Sure.
Well, listen, they got 18,000 to go. Maybe we can get it up to 20 grand. I'd love to see you give some help out there. Again, if you would like to send a donation, write a check. And you certainly could bring cash down there too. I'll take that, I'm sure, too, and give you a receipt. Send your donation to History, Heritage, and Hope, Trinity Episcopal Church, Post Office Box 507, Seneca Falls, New York 13148. And their email address is trinity13148@verizon.net. Doug Avery, Ted Flock, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I wish you well, and hope you can come back in some period of time, or at least get a hold of me. Let me know how things turned out.
Very good.
Well, we sure will. Thank you.
All right, we'll come back. We'll keep the guys here for a few minutes. We'll come back with a couple of sports comments and talk about the next couple of weeks' guest. And, of course, we got to have these guys stick around because they got to take a picture. That's part of coming on Weber this week. So we'll be back after we take a break from the great sponsors that make this show possible. Welcome back, everybody, to Weber This Week. Thanks again to Doug Avery and Ted Flock coming in talking about the Trinity Episcopal Church here in Seneca Falls. And certainly we would love to see you support that. By the way, a couple of sports notes, and then we'll get to talk a little bit about our next couple of guests as we have scheduled out for a few weeks out. Of course, if you're a Miami Heat fan, you certainly are dancing in the streets, and I like to pick on my good friend Dave Barnick, who's a diehard Boston Celtic fan. The number of championships the Celtics have won certainly outdo anything the Miami Heat has done so far, but I use that term so far. One has to wonder if the Heat will put a shame to the Celtic fans in several years, because it looks like, even though the series against San Antonio was nip and tuck, with LeBron James, I don't know how many championships this team could possibly win. They look like they could be, year in and year out, taking all of the marbles. That's how scary. One other comment about LeBron James. A lot of people have told me, he's not as good as Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is far superior than LeBron James. I used to agree with that comment, but I have to say, wait a minute. LeBron has done something that has matched not only two other people in the history of the NBA, Michael Jordan and Bill Russell, winning back-to-back championships and being voted MVP back-to-back. LeBron James, check your records. He just did it again. 2 straight championships, 2 straight MVPs. So as you try to say that Jordan is the best all-around basketball player compared to LeBron James, you may want to take a deep breath, realize that maybe, just maybe, you could be wrong.
What do you think?
I think LeBron James is probably pound for pound what I've seen so far. And as young as he is, I think he's got a chance of going down as the greatest player ever with his structure.
I do too, and all my friends my age, we were young when Jordan was playing. They all say Jordan, and Jordan scored a lot, and he was. I mean,
LeBron is a creature. I mean, he's like from a different world. I mean, this guy is big.
He had a
fast.
triple-double in this Game 7, and Michael Jordan never had a triple-double in that Game 6
Jim,
or 7.
I don't disagree. At one time, I agreed with the Jordan voting block, but after watching this guy play basketball, I mean, this guy is a physical marvel. I mean, he's just big and strong and fast, and I don't know if he stays healthy. I just got a hunch he could be the greatest player, pound for pound. Obviously, you can't compare him with a 7'4" guy.
LeBron brought the Cavs to the finals.
Yes.
LeBron's coach is Eric Spoelstra. And Jordan was coached by Phil Jackson.
Right.
He was 10 championships, probably the greatest coach of all time.
Right.
And he had Scottie Pippen. He had Tony Kukoc.
Yep.
And he had Steve Kerr, was probably the best three-point shooter in the league when he was in his prime. LeBron's got,
I'm sold on
Dwayne
LeBron.
Wade and Chris Anderson.
I know Ted Flock and Dick Marshall are sold on Danica Patrick, but I'm sold on LeBron James. I had to slip that in. Oh, by the way, Ted, I always give my friend Ted Flock and Dick Marshall shots about Danica Patrick. I always thought she should be a waitress at Connie's Diner, not a race driver. And Ted and Dick have taken issue with that. But as you look at the local newspapers, Ted, I see the other day I called my friend Bob Ullman. He's a big Danica fan, by the way. And I said it listed the top 25 NASCAR drivers, and guess what? She's not listed. So, keep looking down. There's only 43 to start the race. But we've had fun over the last several months and the last few years about Danica, whether or not she'll ever turn into a race driver in the big time. Time will tell. By the way, to all the kids around the area, of course, I didn't say it, shame on me, and looking over at Doug, I should have realized with his school background, congratulations on graduation, all these kids getting out of school, and I think they're finally out, aren't they, around the area mostly? But I know schools have different close dates, but to anyone checking us out, mom and dad or grandpa, I'm sure you're happy that your grandson or granddaughter hopefully have gotten out of school and moved on to another grade. I know I'm shocked that my granddaughter during the break is Izzy, and she just finished her freshman year. Wow, in Geneva High. It's pretty scary, and that tells you one thing, guys, that I'm real old. I'm real old. But again, let's talk about baseball for a minute before we wrap this show up. Of course, the Yankees are still playing decent baseball without a lot of their players. It'll be interesting to see what happens to A-Rod. A lot of speculation whether he'll get suspended by Bud Selig on the allege of the drug use. A lot of people elsewhere will, Ryan Braun, a lot of other people will also be in that net. They are claiming that he's going to make a decision very shortly, and he could suspend these guys for up to 100 games. So time will tell, and maybe the Yankees will be happy to see that, because if he gets suspended, he doesn't have to pay the $27 million that he gets for 4 more years, guaranteed cash. Unbelievably, not playing baseball, you pick up $27 million. Where can I get a job like that, huh? Only in the world of sports. Again, congratulations to all the graduates. And again, let's talk about a couple of weeks as we look down the road on this show. Next week, we have a good show. It's going to be like a human interest story. And it brought back memories of the way I was. Madison Hillmeyer is a young lady that goes to Waterloo High. And she has a dream. I know her grandfather, Gordy, quite well. She has a dream of working for ESPN Sports as an anchor person. And I thought that was kind of fitting, and I said, well, I'd love to have her come in and talk about her goal and ambitions and how she's going to get there. And she is willing to come on the air. So next week, she'll be here. Young Madison Hillmeyer will be in to tell us about her goal of being an ESPN anchor, which is obviously the greatest job in the world if you can get one of them. And she'll be in to tell us how she's going to get that. So obviously, it brings back memories in a much smaller scale and a much local scale. As Ted certainly has heard the story about when I wanted to do sports on the radio, I had an old ketchup bottle when I was 7 years old and started practicing out on the front porch. And believe it or not, Doug and Ted, Willard was open at the time in 1952 and 53. And my mother would come on the front porch on Spring Street and thought I lost my complete mind and almost called the wagon. And then 1970, when WSFW was created, I went in and auditioned for it. And we had 12 other people try for the position. And I was lucky enough to get it because I had worked on mimicking play-by-play guys and sports guys for 20-some years. And so it's on a much smaller scale than ESPN, obviously. But dreams do come true. When I was a kid, there's two things I wanted to do in my life. Work at Gould's Pumps. I was there 43 and a half years, and I used the term work loosely. And the second other thing I wanted to be was a sportscaster. And locally, I think I've achieved that goal after 40-some years. So I think it'll be interesting to see Madison come into the studio and tell us about her dreams, and we'll expound on her dreams. That'll be next Monday at 9:30, our regular time. The following week, people talk about golf courses, and we bring in the pro here, we bring in the president here, Carol Ganzon. But how about the nitty-gritty guys? And Jimmy can remember his days on the grounds crew. How about the superintendent of grounds that's in charge of making that golf course immaculate, even though you have a low budget in all these courses because they don't spend a lot of money? You get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. You're out there with your crew. You're cutting grass. You're mowing greens. It brings back smiles to Jim. The old days, right, Jimmy?
No, I wish it paid better. I'd still be doing it. It was the best job ever.
Doug McWhorter, the superintendent of grounds of the Seneca Falls Country Club, will be our special guest on July the 8th at 9:30 in the morning. We'll get down nitty-gritty, no pun indicated. And Doug will tell us how his and his staff can put up with the harassment of all these members. What do you mean, cart pass only? And on the 15th, looking down the road, we are arranging a show on an unbelievable popular sport, and I got to admit my ignorance. I've never seen it. Pickleball. You ever heard of it?
Not at all.
All right, it's a pickleball. They play with paddles. It started out west in Washington and Oregon, and they have competition and actually play it at the rec center here.
Okay.
Up in Waterloo. It's called pickleball paddle, and it's supposed to take over the nation. It's a great sport. Jim's going to go tape some of it, and we're going to have some of those representatives in to talk about this unbelievable sport. So you guys have never heard about pickleball?
Not at all.
I did hear the term, but hey, we'll have them. So that's how we are. Right now we're through the 15th of July. If you'd like to come in after that, talk about your issue, we'd be more than glad to entertain you coming in, sitting on the couch, and talking to us here on Weber this week. Again, thanks, Ted. Thanks, Doug, for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, you take care. Have a nice week. It's supposed to get real hot the next few days. And again, I complain when it's hot. I complain when it's cold. Can't please an old dog. Take care, everybody. Until next week, enjoy your week. See ya.